Recording has started.
Very good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to another very interesting topic to celebrate the Rashtriya Poshan Ma 2021, converging towards a healthy walk through life. This dialogue is going to be presented by Ms. Ansi Divanji, and the title of today's dialogue is Wasting and IVCN Practices. Mansi is a PhD student of Department of Foods and Nutrition, and over this entire portion, we have tried to take up topics which were set up by the Department of Women and Child Development, and the entire idea was to learn more and to sensitize among ourselves these topics in this course of Advances in Public Health Nutrition. Over to you, Mansi. And now I'd request today's moderator, Ms. Meghna Patel, to continue with today's program. Over to you, Meghna.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good morning to one and all present here. Despite rapid development in our economy, we have failed to secure better nutritional status among the children of our country, and we all know the health status of the country can largely be gauged by the measuring the health of women and children. And the first 6 years of life for the children are the most crucial for mental, physical, and social development. And particularly, infant and under 5 children are more prone to malnutrition, mortality, and other diseases. So, as we all know, September marks the celebration of National Nutrition Month. We had series of webinar highlighting this year's theme by conducting sessions on Poshan Vatika, adolescent anemia awareness campaign about Ayush practices, and insight to Poshan Abhiyan and Poshan 2.0, fish and seafoods for improving the nutritional status, and childhood stunting and IVCN. And continuing that, today we will be focusing on wasting in children and IVCN practices. And I would now like to invite our today's speaker, Ms. Mansi Divanji, and she madam is a temporary assistant professor at Department of Foods and Nutrition, Faculty of Family and Community Sciences, the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. She is both NET and SLET qualified, and she is an executive committee member of the MSc Food and Nutrition Alumni Association. And her area of interest are major into public health nutrition, nutrition health communication, qualitative research. Madam has extensive experience of working in research projects involving qualitative research techniques conducted by the Preventive and Social Medicine Department, Baroda Medical College, and funded by national and international agencies like UNFPA, WHO India Office, ICMR, and National Institute of Health, US. She has several research publications based on this qualitative research studies to her credit. And also, she has recently contributed a chapter in the book Indian Food Anthropology and Eat Right Movement, edited by Professor Vanisha Nambiar, ma'am. And now I request everyone to kindly mute their audio and video for better connectivity, and I kindly put on questions in the question box. It will be taken at the end of this session. Now, without any further delay, we will turn the time over to Mansi, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Meghna. I will just start sharing my screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. I'll go to the full screen mode. Okay, so uh, before I start with today's presentation, first and foremost, I would like to thank Professor Vanisha Nambiar ma'am for giving us this opportunity, for this PhD dialogue. at the Department of Foods and Nutrition as part of the Rashtriya Poshan Ma 2021 celebrations. Thank you very much, Vanisha ma'am, for this opportunity and many others in the past that you have given me to present myself at various platforms. Without further ado, I would begin with my topic of presentation for the day, that is wasting and IYCN practices. So, without wasting much time, what is wasting? Let's see that. Wasting technically is defined as a weight for height less than -2 standard deviations from the median of the World Health Organization child growth standards. So, just in a nutshell, low weight for height is known as wasting. It usually indicates recent and severe weight loss because a person has not had enough food to eat and or they have had an infectious disease such as diarrhea which has caused them to lose weight. Child wasting refers to a child who is too thin for his or her height and is the result of recent rapid weight loss or the failure to gain weight. And a young child who is moderately or severely wasted has an increased risk of death, but treatment is possible. So we are this much interested in the condition wasting because either moderate wasting or severe wasting, the child is at risk of death, and that is why something needs to be done. So let's see, why is it important to prevent wasting and cure it? Now,
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am. Ma'am, slides are not moving.
okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, I hope the slide has changed now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so I was saying, why is it important to prevent and cure wasting? Wasting is a major health problem, and owing to its associated risks for morbidity, it requires urgent attention. So, among the 6 global nutrition targets for 2025, the sixth target is to reduce and maintain childhood wasting to less than 5%. So, on the right side, I have listed the image shows the 6 global nutrition targets that have been identified. 40% reduction in the number of children under 5 who are stunted, then 50% reduction of anemia in women of reproductive age, 30% reduction in low birth weight, no increase in childhood overweight, increase the rate of exclusive breastfeeding in the first 6 months up to at least 50%. And the sixth target, like I said, is to reduce and maintain childhood wasting to less than 5%. Now, addressing wasting is of critical importance because of the heightened risk of disease and death for children who lose too much of their body weight. And it is very difficult to improve rates of child survival without improvement in the proportion of wasted children receiving timely and appropriate life-saving treatment, alongside reductions in the number of children becoming wasted in the first place. So, if you're looking at improving the rates of child survival and decreasing the rate of mortality, what we have to do is we have to try and bring in reductions in the number of children who suffer from wasting. So, prevention is very, very important. Before we move ahead, just look into the classification of wasting. Uh, has the slide changed?
No, yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, thank you. Yeah. So, the World Health Organization classifies wasting in children as either severe or moderate according to the growth reference for weight for height. And like we saw earlier, wasting is a reduction or loss of body weight in relation to the height, and it is a form of Acute malnutrition. Acute malnutrition in children aged 6 to 59 months can either be moderate or it can be severe. So we'll see into the definition of what is severe acute malnutrition, uh, popularly known as SAM. So severe acute malnutrition is defined as severe form of wasting and or a mid upper arm circumference, that is MUAC, less than 115 mm, that is less than 11.5 centimeters, and or the presence of bilateral pitting edema. Similarly, if you go to moderate acute malnutrition, it is defined as moderate wasting and or MUSC greater than 11.5 centimeters and less than 12.5 centimeters. Again, on the right side, there's just an image that I have taken from the Sun India movement. So we have the three phases of malnutrition which we are dealing with globally. One is stunting. We've already had a PhD dialogue on stunting last week. The other one is wasting, and the third one is overweight. So, of course, like we can see in the image for wasting, we see very thin children. So according to their height, their weight is quite low, and of course, that is why they are described as being too thin for their height. Just let's take a look at the prevalence of wasting. It is estimated that at any point in time in the world, 52 million children aged under 5 years are wasted, with 17 million of those estimated to be severely wasted. Currently, some countries, and some of them highly populated countries, they report a prevalence of wasting of more than 10% throughout the year, such as Nigeria, Pakistan, India. The rates are high throughout the year. Globally, if we see, wasting accounts for 4.7% of all deaths of children aged under 5 years. Severely wasted children are, on average, 11 times more likely to die than their healthy counterparts, and hence, so much attention to wasting in children. The current global levels of severe wasting are responsible for up to 2 million deaths annually. And the worst part is that the majority of all moderately and severely wasted children actually reside in Asia. So, the World Health Assembly wasting target that we just saw before, it has two aspects: reducing and then maintaining the levels of childhood wasting to below 5%. Both of these things are major challenges. Actually reducing wasting and then maintaining it to those levels, both of these are major challenges. We will see ahead why. But first, a look into the causes. What is it that causes wasting in children? So, children become wasted when they lose weight rapidly, usually as a direct result of a combination of infection and diets that do not cover nutritional needs. So, the main underlying causes of wasting are poor access to appropriate, timely, and affordable health care, inadequate caring and feeding practices like exclusive breastfeeding or low quantity and quality of complementary food, poor food security. And we are talking about poor food security not only in humanitarian situations, but also an ongoing lack of food quantity and diversity, which is characterized in many resource poor settings by a monotonous diet with low nutrient density, together with inadequate knowledge of patterns of food storage, preparation, and consumption. So, here we are actually talking about the lack of food quantity also, and a lack of diversity, a lack of dietary diversity, because of which children suffer from poor immunity and infections, and as a result of that, wasting. Then another major responsible cause is lack of a sanitary environment, including access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene services, again impacting the rate of illnesses and infections in children. All these factors, they are strongly related to each other and they have a cyclical relationship with wasting. Poor diet leads to increased risk of infection, and infection has a profound effect on nutritional status. So it is referred to as this vicious cycle of wasting that continues. A healthy child who suffers from an infection will eventually suffer from wasting if the infection is not getting cured, and as the wasting becomes severe, the infection also doesn't improve because of the lack of proper dietary practices, and hence the cycle continues. What is the solution? What is it that we can do? The answer is optimal IYCM practices. We know what is IYCF or IYCM practices. It's the short for infant and young child feeding or infant and young child nutrition practices. Now, these are a set of well-known and recommended appropriate feeding practices for newborn and children up to 2 years of age. Of course, recommended by the WHO and UNICEF. What are these? First and foremost, early initiation of breastfeeding within 1 hour of birth, which would also ensure feeding colostrum to the child. Then, once that has taken place, ensuring that the child is breastfed exclusive for the first 6 months of life. After that, that is after completion of 180 days of life, we are talking about the introduction of nutritionally adequate and safe complementary foods. By safe complementary foods, also they need to be solid, semi-solid, soft foods depending upon the age, and not those thin liquids that are fed to the child. So the complementary foods, they have to be adequate, they have to be safe, the consistency has to be right, and together with these complementary foods, breastfeeding needs to be continued up to 2 years of age or even beyond. However, the problem is that many infants and children do not receive optimal feeding. For example, only about 44% of infants aged 0 to 6 months worldwide were exclusive breastfed over the period of 2015 to 2020. The numbers are very disappointing. If proper IYCN practices are in place, over 8,20,000 children's lives could be saved every year among children under 5 years if all children 0 to 24 months were optimally breastfed. And few children receive nutritionally adequate and safe complementary foods. In many countries, less than a fourth of infants 6 to 24 months of age meet the criteria of dietary diversity and feeding frequency that are appropriate for the age. So, like we saw earlier, the problem is when the complementary feeding is initiated, what are the types of food that are given? The dietary diversity, the quality of the complementary foods is not enough, is not good, the quantity is not enough, and the feeding frequency is also not enough, all of which of course affects the nutritional status of the child. What can be done? Infant and young child feeding is a key area to improve child survival and promote healthy growth and development. We know that the first 2 years of a child's life are particularly important, as optimal nutrition during this period lowers morbidity and mortality. It reduces the risk of chronic disease and fosters better development overall. So the answer, of course, is optimal infant and young child nutrition practices. So briefly, we'll just look into what IYCM practices or IYCF practices can do for infants, how they can help. Now, these are some of the slides which I have actually taken from the PPT of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, the Government of India, for SAM management and IYCF practices. So we'll just look into the IYCF practices. What all can be achieved? Breastfeeding within 1 hour of birth, it reduces the risk of neonatal mortality by 33%. Exclusive breastfeeding, it can reduce 13% under 5 death. So death of children under 5 years of age can be reduced by 13% if exclusive breastfeeding is practiced. Then breastfeeding, as we all know, it has tremendous impact on the cognitive development of children. And complementary feeding, again, appropriate, adequate, safe complementary feeding. It promotes optimal growth, prevents stunting, it prevents micronutrient deficiencies, anemia, and overweight. All of which ultimately can lead to economic gains of about $302 billion per year due to increased productivity that is associated with higher intelligence. And that is why so much of importance is given to the young child feeding practices. So, what is the government doing? We can just take a look at the strategies that the government has undertaken for the promotion of IYCF practices. So, we have the MA program. I'm sure everyone is aware. The Mother's Absolute Affection program is there in place. That is there. Then the village health and nutrition days, like at the Anganwadi, the Mamta Divas is celebrated, wherein mothers are given counseling. Pregnant women, lactating women are counseled about IYCN practices. So that is one thing that is recommended. Then facilitating the implementation of the IMS Act. We'll see in further slides what exactly are we talking about by the IMS Act. We'll take a look at that. But that is one strategy that the government has adopted. And if wherever prevention is not possible, for treatment and cure, we have the nutrition rehabilitation centers, the NRCs that we are talking about in place. So this is what the government is trying to do. Just a look into the MA program. What can it help us achieve? So, according to the data that has been cited here, only 41.6% babies have early initiation of breastfeeding, whereas institutional delivery rate stands at 78.9%. So even though the delivery rate, institutional delivery rate is better, has improved, but still, in institutions also, they are failing to ensure early initiation of breastfeeding. So what is required is the facility-based promotion of IYCF under the MA program. That is what we are looking at. What all can be done or what all should be done? So towards the right, we have this. First, the health facility strengthening, because the health facility is the first place where the mother and the child are together after delivery. So there could be lactation management counselors and lactation management centers established. There is a need to build the capacities of the healthcare providers. Then what else? The mass awareness for appropriate breastfeeding and child feeding practices is required. It is very important to change the mindset of the people and to clear the doubts, the myths that people have regarding IYCN practices. So awareness, sensitization is very much required. Community level activities. So the ASHA workers can conduct timely and regular meetings for the mothers. There should be IYCF trainings for all the ANMs at all the sub-centers. So even the grassroots level functionaries are all aware and sensitized about the proper practices and its importance. And of course, there should be some kind of awards or recognition given to baby friendly facilities. So these are the things that can be done. What else can be done? Apart from this, what else can be done? So mothers and families need to be supported for their children to be optimally breastfed. Actions that help protect, promote, and support breastfeeding include adoption of policies that recommend a longer duration of leave and higher benefits. So we are talking about the maternity leave. If there are policies which are framed that can allow for longer durations, the mother can actually breastfeed her child. She can exclusively breastfeed her child, and there should be, of course, benefits given to the mother at her workplace. The facilities should be available at her workplace so that she can breastfeed her child. The next thing, adoption of the International Code of Marketing of breast milk substitutes. So the IMS Act is what we're talking about, and of course the subsequent relevant World Health Assembly resolutions. Then the other thing, implementation of the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding that have been specified in the baby friendly hospital initiative. So what we need to do is promote the baby friendly hospital initiative, and promote the 10 steps that include skin to skin contact between mother and child immediately after birth and initiation of breastfeeding within the first hour of life, breastfeeding on demand, which means as often as the child wants, day and night, being aware, being alert about the cues of the child for feeding and feeding the child on demand. Rooming in, which means allowing the mothers and infants to remain together 24 hours a day, which actually helps mother to initiate and continue with successful breastfeeding. And then, of course, not giving babies additional food or drink, even water, unless medically necessary. This also, of course, includes, if for our Indian context, not giving any kind of pre-lactals despite strong recommendations from this family, avoiding giving any kind of pre-lactals and trying to practice actual exclusive breastfeeding. Some other things also can be done. So, provision of supportive health services with infant and young child feeding counseling during all contacts with caregivers and young children, such as during antenatal and postnatal care, the well child and sick child visits, and immunization. So there have to be supportive health services. That is what we are talking about, and the counseling care in place that is required. Alongside, we also need community support, including the mother support groups and community-based health promotion and education activities. There is no point just in educating the mother, or just talking to the family about all these things. If actually the entire community can be made aware about these things, and they can be sensitized about the importance of correct IYCN practices, that is where we can make a difference. And in continuation with this, I am very proud to say that one such initiative has been taken up by the Department of Foods and Nutrition, the Faculty of Family and Community Sciences, the Maharaja Sajirao University of Baroda. That is the forming of the WW Alliance partnership, with of course the Vadodara Mahanagar Seva Sadan and the Department of Pediatrics, the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the Preventive and Social Medicine Department, uh, in all involving all sectors together, bringing all these stakeholders together. Why? Because the aim is to promote, protect, and support breastfeeding. And of course, the brainchild behind this initiative is none other than Professor Vanisha Nambyal. So thank you, ma'am, for that. And we've been trying to ensure that the alliance partners work together for a common goal. Of course, all of you would know, in this regard, each year we celebrate the World Breastfeeding Week, 1st to 7th August. Numerous activities are carried out just with the single aim to sensitize people about the correct IYCN practices. So, I move towards the end of my presentation, and like I had said, we'll just take a look at what is the IMS Act, and what is it to be done. We are saying that the Infant Milk Substitute Act needs to be promoted. So what does that mean? So we just take a look at that. What does it do, or what does the act say? It bans advertisement of infant milk substitutes, feeding bottles, and infant foods. It bans the use of health systems for promotion of these products, like the display of posters or giving free samples. It bans the sponsorship of health workers or their associations. It bans the commission on sales. Then it prohibits donation and distributions of educational equipment, materials related to infant milk substitutes or feeding bottles by healthcare system. The provision related to labeling and quality control of IMS and feeding bottles and infant foods are to be implemented by concerned departments of state governments. And whatever educational material, advertisements or promotional material for pregnant and lactating women is prepared and is disseminated, it must include information for appropriate breastfeeding. So this is what the IMS Act talks about. Why is it important? Like we said, if we need to improve the nutritional status of children, if we need to prevent severe acute malnutrition or cure it, we need to see to it that appropriate optimal IYCN practices are followed, which does not include the uh, giving of infant milk substitutes to the children. And that is why we need to see to it that the IMS Act is being promoted and is being implemented. So if I would just want to summarize what all things we need to do if we are talking about preventing wasting in children or curing it, what is it that we have we have seen till now? First and foremost, the optimal IYCN practices. So early initiation of breastfeeding within 1 hour of birth, giving colostrum to the child, building the immunity of the child, giving a good start to the child. Then practicing exclusive breastfeeding, not giving any foods, liquids, not even water, no prelactals. Then after 180 days of life, appropriate complementary feeding practices. So the complementary foods have to be adequate, they have to be safe, they have to be enough quantity wise, and they have to be quality wise good enough. They have to meet the dietary diversity. Plus the complementary foods, they could very well be made from the locally seasonally available foods, just to improve the dietary diversity of the foods. The local recipes, based on the seasonal availability, can be prepared as complementary foods, of course in a manner which the child can ingest. But such things need to be done, that is really important. Then implementation of the IMS Act, that is important. Feeding the child when the child is ill, we say that you have to improve the frequency of the feed when the child is recovering from an infection. This is one thing which is most of the time highly neglected. So this is what is required. And then if we are talking about the facility-based management of children. So then we also have the nutrition rehabilitation centers that are there. Of course, even at the NRCs, we have our own students from here, from the nutrition department, who are there as nutrition assistants, who counsel mothers regarding IYCN practices, regarding the kind of complementary foods that can be given after the child is discharged, the nutritious foods that can be given to the children after the child reaches home. So these are all the things that need to be done with appropriate behavior change communication. That is also very much required. Like I had said in the beginning, it is important to change the mindset of the people, change their beliefs about the age-old practices, and make them aware about the correct practices. So with this, I would like to just end my presentation, and I just want to say one thing: the optimum IYCN practices do make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an insightful, wonderful presentation. And it was great to hear from you about wasting in children and IYCN practices. And we know there is a declining trend in nutritional status of undernutrition in children and improvement in IYCN practices in Gujarat, but the concern still remains for its pace as we need to achieve the global nutrition targets. So now we will begin with answering the questions. Please raise your hands if, yeah, yes, Vanisha ma'am.
Hello everyone, congratulations Mansi. As expected, a very nice, exhaustive, beautifully presented dialogue on what can be the remedies for low birth weight in India and how we can improve the IYCN practices. So congratulations once again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Tell
Thank you
me
so
one
much.
thing. Uh, We are always like, you spoke about the World Breastfeeding Week and Alliance and everything. So that was very commendable. My question to you is, how can we move a step closer towards the baby friendly hospitals?
Ma'am, first and foremost, of course, creating awareness about the baby friendly hospital initiative, doing that, forming alliances like we have already done, is very important, that the medical professionals understand the need for this baby friendly hospital initiative and actually work together with communities to implement it. So that is one thing which is really important. Only then we move closer to achieving that. So the medical professionals, like we have already been doing, they need to be sensitized, and with constant counseling and sensitization, I think we can achieve that.
Thank you. I think everybody should ask a question. So one by one, Meghna, just call out everybody's name, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Uh,
start with yourself. You ask a question first.
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I wanted to ask how to sensitize among the staff nurses regarding early initiation of breastfeeding, not to give any pre-lactals.
Yes, thank you for that question, Meghna. And coming from you, I think it actually
We have
means,
to start.
yeah, you have to start. Plus you have actually, you would have seen this, and that is why
Yes,
the
ma'am.
question is there. It is actually the situation. It is the sad part is there. Like I said, it is the place where all this begins. That is the place where all the incorrect practices are being followed. So we need to work hard, like I said, sensitizing these nurses. Even they would have some age old practices, because in their families their elders would have said things to them which they would have followed for themselves, and then that is what they actually practice in the hospital. So everybody has to work together, the medical staff, the paramedical staff, everybody, the nurses especially, because they are the ones who are in contact with the mothers. And so it is very important that we change their mindset and convince them about early initiation of breastfeeding, what all benefits that can bring, how it can affect the immunity of the child, and in the long run, giving a good nutritional status of the child. So I think awareness and sensitization is a must.
Yes, ma'am. Conducting sessions for them also.
Correct, correct. Regular sessions with them, and
Yes,
of
ma'am.
course, with nutritional professionals like yourself being present there, you can actually try and
Yes.
collaborate and bring all this together, which can actually help in sensitization.
They are actually really very frustrated doing 30 deliveries in a day, and they just run here and there, and no one is there with the mother and the child. So
Correct, correct.
maybe,
I completely understand. We have seen, we've taken students to government hospitals, and we've seen such scenarios. It's packed, and each bed has a mother-child pair lying down, and then there's, the nurses are not even able to manage, like you are saying. So it is difficult, but then, with initiatives like the World Breastfeeding Week celebration, and of course throughout the year the BCC strategies, if we can do that, I think slowly we can bring about a change.
yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
I
Meghna.
would request, yes, Devan, she has one question. Could you give some highlights about IMS Act, and is there any data available regarding the sales of formula feeds in the market and its use by the local people?
Okay, thank you for the question, Devanshi. So, of course, a lot of information is available about the IMS Act. The use of course, formula feeds and all. In fact, when we had the WBW celebration in our department this time, we've had experts coming in and talking about the Infant Milk Substitute Act. So they have shed a lot of light on this, how formula feeds are being given to the children. Why they are given? We just saw, I think Meghna answered that, because the nursing staff, they have no other way out. With so many deliveries there, so many mother child pairs to look after, they just resort to this thing. So I think we need to do something about this. But the IMS Act, which is in place like since 2003, but the implementation is very poor. So all of us need to work together for the act.
Sabat, if you have any questions.
Uh, yes, I just wanted to ask that is it somewhere we are neglecting the thing that we know that by breastfeeding, so much of percentage reduction can be brought in the prevalence. So, are we somewhere lagging behind in giving it the importance that it holds? The be it optimal IYCF practices or exclusive breastfeeding or early initiation, like the Mamta card we have. So, can we do this that we know that the birth weight is recorded, but the time of initiation of breastfeeding is not recorded anywhere. So, can we do this that the frontline workers or the grassroots functionaries, they can be sensitized, or one column can be made that whether the individual child was the breastfeeding was initiated early, then was the child exclusively breastfed. Like when we go in the field, we try and probe and ask the mother that did you feed or not. But if that same thing as a component is added in the Mamta card itself, and it is somewhere made sensitive to the breastfeeding practices, can something be done with that, like monitoring these components and at the same time recording it? So can you share your views about it, or the practical thing that can be done regarding this?
Thank you, Sabat, for the question, and thank you for a very good suggestion. I think it is a very good suggestion that if we ensure monitoring, then I think we can ensure the practices being followed. Just one way of doing it, like I said, the other thing, of course, is that behavior change communication is required, because like you yourself said, we are not giving the kind of importance that it needs to be given. So we need to start giving the IYCN practices the kind of importance they deserve, and sensitize people regarding the same. Plus, like you said, if it becomes a component that is added as part of some service, and it is then evaluated accordingly, I think we can definitely move an inch closer. I don't know if that is the only solution, but we can definitely move an inch closer to achieving our targets. So thank you, Sabat, for that suggestion.
Sampada has one question. Is there if there is no availability of BF and not even the donated milk, is it okay to give IMS as a first feed? Okay.
Yes, Sampada, that's a good question, and of course, a very practical one also. If there are no option available, and if it is medically recommended, then of course there is no way out. Uh, IMS can be given, but then again, it has to be taken care of. That means you're talking about giving artificial, feeding to
Formula
the
feeds.
child. Exactly. So you have to be very careful, and it should be done only under supervision, because suddenly you cannot mix the artificial feed then with breastfeeding. So it can be done, like I said, if it is medically recommended, but under supervision, and preferably with guidance from a lactation counselor, which is very, very important.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, Karamjit wants to know there is still violation of IMS Act. So, apart from creating awareness, what could we do?
Uh, uh, Karamjit, apart from creating awareness, I think the only thing is then that is there we need to have stricter regulations. stricter rules and regulations, and again giving the kind of importance that this act deserves. Like when we are talking about no smoking, or we are talking about alcohol consumption, or we are talking about drug abuse, people consider these as serious issues, but when we are talking about the IMS Act, it is still not being given that kind of importance. So we need to have stricter regulations in place, and like I had shown that slide earlier, we need to ban the use of these products, plus even those facilities who are using these products, they need to be reprimanded. Something has to be done about that also. Only then I think we can think of complete implementation of this act. So I hope Karamjit I've answered your question well.
Thank you, ma'am. Uh, okay, so can we conclude today's dialogue?
Yes, go ahead.
Uh, so I would like to conclude. So today, Mansi ma'am nicely briefed us about wasting and its causes and consequences, and why it is important to cure and prevent it. And also among one of the 6 global targets for 2025. Then she described about the classification and how to identify the child with Sam and Mam. And she highlighted the prevalence of wasting, that is 52 million children under 5 years of age are wasted, and it accounts for 4.7% of all the deaths of children aged under 5 years. Then she focused in detail why wasting is observed in children, and be it poor access to timely, appropriate, and affordable healthcare, to inadequate care in feeding and practices, and so on. And to overcome this, she explained about IVCN practices, and if it is followed, we can surely save 8 lakhs children's lives yearly. And then the programs under IVCN, she discussed, that is MA program celebrating the health and nutrition days, and about the NRC, and to reduce the wasting and undernutrition in children. And over that, she also talked about the 10 steps of successful breastfeeding, BFHI, and the departmental achievement in initiating the WBW Alliance partnership for promoting and supporting the breastfeeding. And the session ended with provision of IMCN Act 2003, that is about ban advertisement of infant milk substitute, prohibition to donation, distribution of the educational material regarding the same. So I would like to thank Vanisha ma'am for always inspiring and supporting us, and also for giving this platform to share our knowledge and exploring our competencies. And thank you everyone for being a great audience. And we will meet tomorrow morning for the last dialogue of National Nutrition Month, that will be focusing on food fortification using local ingredients.
Thank you so much. See you all tomorrow.